on the security front, Taiwan's military is on alert for PLA drills, an increasingly common occurrence. As of recording time, we don't have any reports of Chinese activity around Taiwan. At the start of April, China launched Straight Thunder 2025A, featuring the Army, Navy, Air and Rocket forces to, quote, close in on Taiwan in, quote, multiple directions. This drill differed from Joint Sword 2024A and B in terms of the addition of live-fire drills and a surge in maritime militia in the Taiwan Strait. Alex, you're a military expert. I want to ask you, how would you characterize what China is doing through these exercises compared to 2024?
Well, I think I will say this, that ever since United States House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit, so far we have 5 large-scale drills that encircling Taiwan. The first 2 was in 2022 and 23 was a reaction to previous President Tsai Ing-wen's meeting with the United States high officials or senior politicians. But the past 3 was not, targeted at the United States-Taiwan relationship. It was targeted at President Lai. So the 3 exercises that you mentioned, the Joint Sword 24A and B, and earlier this year, the Straight Thunder. I think the pressure on Taiwan and with different operational concept, different forces involved, are more targeted at President Lai. So the tension and the pressure has become higher in the past year.
Right. And Wen-Ti, would you expect that there would be activity this time? Alex mentioned that many of the past ones were targeted at Lai. Anything in Lai's speech you think that would allow China to have an excuse to carry out these drills?
This time around, I would say not much really, although, of course, whatever Lai says, Beijing is going to be unhappy anyway, so that's kind of a given by this point. If you look at the main text of Lai's prepared remarks, he basically said very little, if anything, about China itself, and it's really during the Q&A when Lai actually said something about China. And
so
during
what was that? I did want to ask, what was the reason, what was the strategy in that?
I think Lai knows that at this point, Taiwan is largely playing defense during the first year of Lai's administration, in part because Lai's first year was spent largely in a transitional year when Taiwan's largest security partner, U.S., was itself going through a presidential election, and also after that with a period of Trumpian shock, if you will, when there's geopolitical realignment. So I think in that sense, Taiwan is trying to keep its head low. Talk about China, he's talking about how there will be largely continuity in policy terms. Whatever he's been doing over last year, he'll continue to do it, which are the usual 4 pillars of peace plans: deterrence, diversification economically with friends and partners, dialogue with Beijing on mutually respectable terms, and then largely building partnerships with other like-minded democratic friends.
And Vincent, we spoke about the drills, obviously, but how is this part of a much broader hybrid warfare campaign by China?
Well, I think China's trying to do a couple of things. The first one, they've been trying with very limited success so far to paint President Lai as a troublemaker and Taiwan as, when she said, on the contrary, as rocking the boat. And I think so far they've been quite unsuccessful because the president, whether through actions or words, have shown that he's committed to upholding the status quo. He's not deviated from the roadmap that President Tsai has put in place. So I think they've had limited success. But other than that, I think what they've been trying to do is heighten tensions around the region to show not only dissatisfaction towards Taiwan and the international community, but also show their own domestic audience that they are engaged in actions to try to curb so-called Taiwanese independence. So I think taken together, it's hard to imagine that these tensions subside or that China is going to make a major policy turnaround. I think chances of that are very low at this point. But I do think that at this point, China also realizes and recognizes that President Lai is not a troublemaker and that Taiwan is on quite a consistent and sustainable path. And as a result, I think the hope is that they will also keep things under control and they will engage in military exercises, yes, but I think there will be an effort to avoid this escalating into something that would be unsalvageable.
Alex, do you agree with that assessment?
Well, basically, yes, because Taiwan, on one side, we have the continued increased coercion from China. On the other side, is the shock wave of the reciprocal tariff. So Taiwan got our own hands full in dealing with foreign challenges. Or challenges outside of Taiwan. And now, so I think President Lai at his first anniversary probably does not want to increase any, pressure from outside or invite any problems from outside. And so he can focus on his energy in dealing with domestic affairs.
Right. And Wen-Ti, there's also, of course, recently a lot has come out about Chinese influence operations and in particular spies, even reaching the presidential office. Can you characterize to us what sort of threat, what sort of challenges, what level of challenge Taiwan is facing at the moment?
I think it's the threat of the fifth column, if you will. Obviously, whenever you find there's a spy, there's adversarial forces hitting inside your own ranks, that's going to be sowing a certain atmosphere of doubt and suspicion internally. So in that sense, it's an effective way for China to find ways to, I think, weaken Taiwan from within. And that's why I think you're looking at President Lai's government trying to come out with what he called the 17 measures in recent months as a way to shore out Taiwan's own defenses, both civil and military, as well as a way to find ways to cut off those influence operations so as to stop this spying activities and then in that way to better safeguard Taiwan.
And Alex, I should ask you, as opposed to Vincent, how well do you think Lai and the administration, Taiwan is doing? How well is it doing to combat these influence operations and the threat from China?
Well, I think since the last administration under President Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwan has already devoted a lot of energies and resources in dealing with so-called this influence campaign or cognitive warfare against Taiwan from foreign actors. Of course, President Lai faces an even much stronger challenge. I think there are policy measures that have been laid out and try to deal with that. It is quite unfortunate that the espionage cases that have been exploited and prosecuted, and we hope that these kind of cases would be limited and would not harm Taiwan's friendship with other international partners as we move on. Because of these cases would naturally send an alarm to our closest friends that as we had more engagement. So I hope.
Which friends are you referring to?
Friendly countries. So I think we need to get our own act together, and that's why I had always advocated a stronger security clearance codified measures to do that.
So what you're referring to is perhaps the U.S. because of the security breaches? Is that what you're thinking of in terms of alarming
because outside it's in the prosecution process, but outsiders cannot know that what a specific infiltrators access to classified information because we don't have the full picture, so that will naturally lead to suspicions. I hope the government can, at some point, give a clear-cut information sharing with our like-minded partners, so they will not be kept in the dark, because that won't help our national interests.
Vincent, do you want to respond to that? Information sharing?
I think one area that we could completely agree on between the opposition party and the government is that a need for, like Alex said, a very good security classification system for rigorous security checks, for ensuring that people with access to classified information do pass through the requisite amount of security protocols. So I think that's fine. From what I hear Alex is trying to say is that obviously this is going to raise a lot of concerns by our international partners in terms of how much and what information has been leaked out there if I'm not mistaken. And certainly, I think this is an area where our prosecutor's office, our judicial authorities need to really come in and step up and look into sort of what were the vulnerabilities and what are the areas that we need to implement in order to combat future cases. So this is essentially going back to the 70 measures, what the 70 measures are. I mean, the 70 measures are a set of common sense initiatives that, in my opinion, should have been implemented years ago. The idea that people with security clearances need to have disclosures before they travel to China. I mean, this is something that should be a no-brainer. The idea that, for example, we need a military court system. I mean, even polls that have been conducted by media outlets closer to the opposition party have showed over half of KMT supporters like that idea. I mean, it's an idea that just makes a lot of sense. I mean, hardening our defenses for our critical infrastructure, like ports, transportation, and so forth. So I think people, particularly politically motivated people, have blown the 70 measures a bit out of proportion. And if you actually look at what these measures are and what they point to and what they aim to do, they really represent, I think, a set of necessary steps that are needed for Taiwan's security. And they should attract support from across the political spectrum.